The idea for 1 Hour Photo came from my fascination that I can't really account for with those big 24-hour discount department drugstore emporia. So I said, well, what would be the most compelling character that would work in a place like this? It occurred to me that it's the 1 Hour Photo guy who sees the private moments of people's lives.
I've taught people who worked in labs who said that, people bring in things that are very intimate and think, well, because it's developed by a machine that no one sees them. Truth is, people look through them and go, that must hurt. You're seeing all these different things and, they're there for him to look at. And through the photographs, he can, see it and become associated with someone's life.
There are no people that we should just ignore or forget 5 minutes after we see them.
We use these photos that we make in our lives, and we take them to this 1 Hour Photo, and in 1 hour, we get these recordings of our lives.
It's a psychological drama about a man who's gone unnoticed his whole life and creates this link and this affinity with his family through his job, which is processing photos. And he's been processing this family's photos for so long, and he kind of convinces himself as the movie goes on that he knows and befriends them.
It's not like a Norman Rockwell family, but almost like families you see in advertisements now, or, young, beautiful, the perfect in the terms of that dream. They seem to have everything. He's totally the opposite. Not attractive, not on that level, lives alone. It's like the exact counterpoint of the universe for him. And he's drawn to them.
People who are lonely become very shrewd and very good at engaging other people's attention, to escape their loneliness.
I think one of the interesting twists in the film is that Cy isn't getting all the information from snapshots. Snapshots just show the happy parts of our lives.
Everybody isn't Cy, but everybody's experienced Cy moments. The inability to connect to other people, the always being a little off, that kind of loneliness. Anybody can relate to that. And the trick to Cy always was making him sympathetic without making him saccharine. And that's, I think, something that Robin's really managed to pull off.
Bringing Robin Williams into this type of movie suddenly makes it infinitely more interesting and subversive in a way.
This is something different than anything I've done. Doesn't look like anything I've done. Doesn't feel like anything I've done before.
To see an actor suppress and repress that amount of energy becomes extremely interesting, because we know that he's suppressing a volcano. He's not suppressing a hiccup.
I never hurt those people.
In between takes, he needed to blow off steam.
You know something, boy? Jake, I was just doing my Tai Chi.
He told me that when he's doing comedic roles, he gets kind of quiet in between takes, and when he's doing dramatic roles, he's incapable of not being the Robin that we all know.
I love everything you do.
Robin was the king of improvisation and, ad-libbing, and it's very hard to keep a tight lip sometimes.
You're Will Yorkin! Oh!
Hi, I'm Cy Parrish, the photo guy.
Hi, Cy Parrish. I develop all your family pictures. How are you? Hi.
He says some of the craziest things during takes, especially when he's off camera, and it's hard to keep it together.
And I would have to be the bad guy and say, Robin, we really have to shoot now. And he would say, okay, boss. And, we would say, roll camera, roll sound, put the slate in, and then boom, he would just shrink all of that energy back down into this contained, intense performance of Cy. And it was kind of a marvel to behold.
People always say, oh, he plays such nice people. And then this man is nice, but with a dark side. He does things that, are creepy, that are, bizarre. There's all this interesting stuff that's been great to inhabit. And a real fascinating character. He's almost like a creature that blends into the environment. Obviously the clothes, the hair, everything is all designed to be part of that.
I was watching Robin walk around, between takes, just the color schemes that they chose for his wardrobe. It's really weird. It matches the colors in the store, and I swear there are moments where he just disappeared.
Mark really had a very specific vision for the world he wanted to create in this story.
Let's try coming up just a little bit. I didn't want the film to be strictly naturalistic. I knew that I wanted it to play in a slightly heightened universe so that it had more of a dreamlike or a fable-like quality in the setting of the store. We tried to make as luminous and rational and orderly and clean and abundantly stocked so that you had a sense that Cy was really in his domain.
For Cy, it's like heaven, this kind of white, bright light. You know, that's why it was lit the way it is. It's hyper-reality. Like a lot of those big, market-type stores are. Surreal abundance. Given his visual style plus the literal style of the material, I went, this is fascinating. It's worth being part of. I haven't seen anything like this.
I like the idea that Sy is intelligent about and thoughtful and almost academic about what he does. He assesses the importance of his job, not in a terribly realistic way. I think he has to blow it up for himself so that there's a sense of importance about what he does. At the same time, he's totally sincere about it. He believes that he's the caretaker of people's most cherished memories.
It's his focus. It's the center of his life. And it's his world. I mean, there is total safety in that place.
If you have to work in a place like that, this is one of the most pleasant places to work in. But that pleasantness and that overlit quality and that abundance definitely could start to become oppressive.
This film explores what it means to be in such need of basic love that you have to kidnap someone else's life just to make you feel whole and complete.
Is it dark? Yeah, but certainly leaves a lot to the imagination. One of the most powerful things it says is a desire to be remembered. I was here. I existed. I meant something.
1 Hour Photo is the story of a 1 Hour Photo clerk at a large discount department store, kind of like a Target or a Kmart, who has been processing the photos of this one family for about 10 years, and he grows way too interested in this family's life.
He knows their celebrations and their birthdays and their parties, their anniversaries, all the moments that they think are worth recording.
And through that, he can live vicariously through their happiness, or what he perceives as their happiness.
Sy falls prey to the fantasy that someone lives a life that he's never lived and probably could never live.
He starts to see in the photographs that the family's not as perfect as he thought, and mayhem ensues.
It's all about subtext. It's not about what he's saying on the surface. It's about what's going on in Sy's head.
The most frightening thing to start with was to spend almost a third of the picture inside of a department store, and how do you make that interesting?
The concern was, can a big movie star with this level of charisma crystallize and shrink all that into this character who's meant to be sort of, forgettable?
It's the story of a lonely photo clerk who becomes unwholesomely obsessed with a family through having processed their photographs for years and years. And that obsession takes a turn for the worse when he discovers that the perfect family he imagines they are through these pictures he's seen isn't true. And when that bubble bursts, his world starts to crumble.
We know that something's happened because the film opens with the knowledge that Sy's been arrested for something in relation to this family. We don't know what it is. We don't know how dark this is going to get. We know that Sy's relation to this family is incorrect, improper.
And you see Sy, who's the picture of loneliness and alienation, and you have the Yorkins who live in this kind of suburban splendor. And when these two worlds collide, the themes are really relevant and really interesting, and it makes for a very scary movie.
Sy Parrish is very contained, very precise, it's almost like the machine, but yet, functional, highly functional in terms of, doing the job. He's been doing it for a long time. Takes great pride in it. It would be like that thing you always see in the news where he seemed like such a nice guy, but a little tightly wrapped.
Mostly, the photos have been dropped off by Mrs. Yorkin, played by Connie Nielsen, and that's the character that Sy has the strongest sort of rapport and relationship with, and he knows the son as well, but he's never met Will Yorkin. In this particular scene, Sy encounters, Will Yorkin in the flesh for the first time, which obviously means nothing to Will Yorkin, but for Sy, it's this incredibly important moment.
Just before the scene, Sy is on his lunch break in the lunchroom at the store, and he has a fantasy. He's sort of stolen a snapshot of the Yorkin family at Christmas.
We travel into the photograph, and he imagines himself to be part of that tableau.
And this is where we really see the depth of Sy's fantasy world and the fact that he doesn't really live in reality.
You get a confrontation with a technician over the quality of the photos. You get to see the behavior of a man who has a second life, concealing that life, and also trying to maintain the thing of, his work persona in the face of a boss who's kind of, starting to confront him on unusual behavior.
You have this character who's been shocked out of the perfection of his fantasy, and he's reeling a little bit from that.
His work, which is so important to him, something's starting to go amiss there.
And then he's walking back to his job, which is his reality, and lo and behold, here's one of the objects of his affection standing right there.
It was all about this sort of tightrope of Cy not being too creepy and almost being kind of charming, and Will not being too affronted and almost being complimented, and all of the subtext, because we have information that Michael's character doesn't have.
You really feel he can't help himself from saying something to Will, and you almost can see the wheels turning. I know I shouldn't in some ways.
He wants the family to notice him. He wants to be noticed. He wants to be a part of something. He wants to feel like someone knows he exists.
We can see in the scene that the store manager is watching Cy interact with a customer in a department that's not his own.
It comes across to be blunt, creepy, and, kind of semi-stalking.
The way Michael plays the scene is that he doesn't know how he's supposed to take it. He doesn't know if he's being complimented or whether his privacy is being heinously invaded.
I knew going in before we shot it that the audience would know, what is starting to happen with Cy's character, and it gave me a green light to absolutely be completely, not as threatened as I thought I might be if I had to instruct the audience. As soon as the help I asked for arrives in the computer section, I dismiss him like he doesn't even exist.
When Cy sees Jake and speaks to him as, an adult who is friendly with this child, Will's back immediately goes up. It's not even like Cy isn't Uncle Cy, which of course he isn't, but he can't even be, the friendly guy, in the neighborhood store. He just has to be behind the counter, and that's all he's allowed.
This guy is lonely. This guy's sad. This guy could be a predator. This guy could be anything at this point. And that kind of ambiguity at that point in the story, it's just, it's so juicy. It's great. It's great stuff.
When I first came up with the idea, I wasn't really worrying about who was going to be in it. I was just trying to get it down on paper. Robin Williams didn't occur to me early on, simply because I didn't have those kind of ambitions for the film. It was meant to be a small, odd, dark, European-style character piece, and I figured I would get a really super talented indie-type actor to play it.
I think it was pretty clear that this script could benefit from a star turn, and that in some ways, the best kind of star turn is a star doing something you don't expect, because then everyone's excited about, about the idea of seeing them in such an unfamiliar ground.
People assume that I'm a certain way, that I'm very outgoing, and yeah, I am. I perform, I do comedy, I do all these, extroverted things. But actually that came from being a very quiet kid, and can I do that? Oh yeah, I know that very well. I'm very, and my off time, I can be very much like Cy in terms of that kind of quiet, fixated, look around, compulsive, all of that stuff that was great to apply to a character like this.
If I had any concern, and it was a small concern, but if I had any concern about casting Robin, the concern was, can a big movie star with this level of charisma shrink all that down and still have it be fascinating, but make it a character who's sort of banal and forgettable and a nobody guy, which Robin Williams certainly isn't. He agreed to really change his look, be very pale, be a little overweight. He gained weight for the role and stopped exercising, which he does religiously. Sparse out his hairline and dye his hair blonde and put on these horrible, unstylish glasses.
Robin physically embodied this character. When he put the costume on in the fitting, something happened to his body. His posture changed a little bit.
The moment you put on those clothes and that uniform, everything, and the vest kind of completed everything. Where it's a uniform, and it's also like a second skin for him, because in that he's comfortable. In the store, he's comfortable, and especially in the photomat area, it's his domain. I blend into the store at one point. I remember a guy was setting up some props and stuff, and he said, I didn't even know you were there.
He becomes this kind of timeless, pathetic guy that I think we've seen walking down the street, we've passed. He's helped us at, our local grocery store. Maybe he's a family member. There's nothing extraordinary about Cy. He's completely, seemingly ordinary. But as we know, ordinary doesn't really exist.
You're well looking. Yeah. I'm Cy Parrish, the phototype here.
Oh, right. Cy the photograph, yes.
I tried to come up with some sort of acting exercise that would deepen the scene for the actors or give them something more to work with, because you are really only dealing with subtext once again. There's nothing too significant being said coming out of their mouths.
There was an exercise we did where you meet someone for the first time and the kind of the awkwardness you have, especially meeting someone that you know something about.
You're Will Yorkin.
Yeah. I said to Robin Williams, I said, Robin, is there someone, and this is hard for him because he's a big movie star, is there someone that you haven't met that you would really be excited to meet, almost like an adolescent? And he said, maybe Marlon Brando would still evoke that kind of awe and excitement. If I had met him, I'd be nervous around him. I said, well, why don't you play the scene as a rehearsal as if Michael Vartan is Marlon Brando?
You're here in the flesh.
Because the point is, this family is so important to Cy that they're the equivalent of movie stars or gods and goddesses. We did a really funny rehearsal where he was like an excited teenager.
You're Will Yorkin. Hi! Oh! Hi! Will Yorkin. Oh.
It's completely over the top, but it's just to get the correct juices flowing for that scene.
Will Yorkin needs immediate assistance in aisle 5. Will Yorkin's in the store. Will Yorkin, immediate assistance, aisle 5. I can't believe it, Will Yorkin's here.
There definitely is something to be said about doing these kind of improv exercises because they do tap into certain things that you're not necessarily going to come up with on the day. So it was just nice to start with that and have that as a foundation to see where our characters are going.
We talked a lot about how there were three key realms in the film. One was the store where Cy works. The other is the Yorkins' home life, and the third is Cy's life outside of the store. We talked about it being almost some sort of version of heaven, hell, and purgatory, where the family is in a sort of state of purgatory because they're dysfunctional.
Cy's apartment was hell. I mean, it was the place that he went back to where he really felt the torture of his existence.
The store was sort of, from Cy's perspective, and it's not everyone's idea of heaven, but it has this sort of glowing heavenly perfection to it. I've always been fascinated by these environments, by these all-night, overlit, abundantly stocked American emporia, these discount stores.
This is the world that Cy is most comfortable. It has this perfection to it. And Mark's mandate to all of the departments was he wanted to feel like we could, as he used to say, eat off those floors.
It was a utopian idea of what that type of store would be. You go in there and you can buy whatever you want, you know exactly where it is. It's just a happy experience.
Mark absolutely didn't want to go into an existing Walmart because I think he wanted, a slightly heightened reality for all of the locations.
All the lighting, all the shelves, all the products, the entire 1-hour photo counter and area, everything basically you see in the store except for the tile floor was stuff that we put in there.
It's Cy's environment, and the aisles are filled with products, and they were carefully chosen by color and size and shape to create this kind of seamless environment where he was at home.
His work environment was, very much evocative of who he was. So, setting that scene was character work, really. It wasn't just design work. In terms of the blocking, you can, through most of the scene, you can sense that Cy's photo counter is off in the distance, and it's where he's supposed to be going. It's his boss is angry with him for not being at his station and spacing out on his lunch break. And I think it works nicely that photo counter is sort of back there and we're continually in the background.
The cinematography is very, very straightforward. The camera almost never moves, which is appropriate for the story because it's so much about the world of this 1-hour photography.
None of the film plays out in a completely naturalistic way. It's all slightly heightened in an effort to give it a sort of a little bit of a dreamlike, fable-like quality.
Cy's world, his particular part of the store, and the store in general, is hyper-real and is heavenly to him. So one of the feelings was to have a heavenly light source to light the store that was different than you've seen before. And so we made a white ceiling and inverted lights and bounced off the ceiling to have this heavenly glow come down and make it more comfortable and softer than, most of the department stores that you would find yourself in.
In the store, it's just perfectly white. In the Yorkins' home life, we tried to make it a little warmer, lit by the sun or warm tungsten lights. But outside, Cy's life outside of the store, things are just off. So we tried to have situations where the color temperature is always were shifted in the wrong way. There were a lot of things about lens choices, too, in those three realms. I used normal lenses in the Yorkin's life because, from Cy's perspective, this is the normality that he aspires to. The store tended to have very wide lenses, like just everything is open and this is where Cy feels comfortable. And then Cy's life outside of the store, we tended to try to use longer lenses so that there was a sense that the life outside of the store was compressed.
One of the fundamental ideas of the movie, that because he was a photo developer and because he had a passion for photography, that all point of views would only come from Cy's perspective. And that also helped, show his demented perspective on life.
And we talked about how Cy's character is definitely, if he has a primary sense, it's going to be his eyes. If we ever got lost or we didn't know how to play a scene or how to read a line, or if a moment felt unfocused, we would always go to how Cy sees the world, and that would usually get us out of a jam.
The trick with putting this together was the scene is all about subtext, and a lot of that subtext comes from how the scene is paced. Michael Vartan is very defensive at first. He's very sort of put off by Cy's questions. The amount of time he takes to answer, has meaning. And if he flinches, if he blanches, if he sort of, looks at him sideways, all of those tiny little details add enormous amounts of tension to the scene. It's important to set that up that, Cy has the pressure to get back to work. It increases the tension, and it forces Cy to make his pronunciamento, to say, you have a wonderful family. He has to get that information out. He has to make that connection because the clock's ticking. It's a profound relationship that you set up when you cut from a character to what he's looking at and then back again.
For a moment, you are that person. You're seeing the world through his eyes.
When Cy looks back and sees Jake running back to his father, the look that Robin does there, we refer to it as the Mona Lisa because he just sort of had that sort of beautiful ambiguity to his face. And when that's cut with this boy going back to his father, and then the heartbreak of hearing just under the noise of the store, "Don't talk to strangers" from the father, it's so much happens there emotionally for Cy, and so little happens on his face. Initially, we put, the sound of people talking in the store, in the scene, and it seemed wrong. It didn't work. There were too many voices, too many sounds of carts moving, too much off-screen stuff. It distracted from, not only from what was going on in the scene, but also it broke the back of the sort of dreamlike quality that we had achieved in the store visually.
It's a very simple exchange, but within that exchange, I think you really get the distance that is meant between them.
It's a delicate scene in the sense that I didn't really want there to be heroes and villains in the film in a neat and tidy way. So the degree to which Cy is a threat, we don't know at this point.
Things are starting to come apart in terms of the photo map, in terms of his world, and then later on in terms of the illusion of what that family means to him.
You're with people and you're in their heads and you're in their emotions, but something's afoot and you feel it, and that kind of helps get you to the third act, which is, all excitement.